You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
What's going on, U.S. Cellular customers? I've got good news, so don't hit skip, at least not yet. I'm talking about their special customer event, Us Days. What is Us Days? It means exclusive offers just for their customers, just to say thanks, like $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. No, I didn't just misread that. They must really like you. Us Days at U.S. Cellular, exclusive offers just for you, just to say thank you. Right now, U.S. Cellular customers get $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. Terms apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. So why don't we go ahead and do this? Let's start off with a little conversation about David Bakhtiari. I know he's not a Packer. Why do we care? Well, he's a long-time Packer, actually, so I kind of care. Same with Rodgers and several other guys that go other places. Still interesting to kind of keep tabs, I suppose. Beyond that, there have been questions regarding the likelihood that he comes back. I think that this kind of resurfaced sort of twofold. Number one, David Bakhtiari essentially saying, hey, I'm feeling good, guys. You could say threefold or whatever. He doesn't have a job yet. And then three would be kind of the consternation about the offensive line and not really feeling super comfortable. Some questions about Morgan and, if, it's very early, but if the reports continue that he doesn't seem to be quite ready, it may be more likely that he gets kicked inside. And if he does, you could see a path to where we would want to see Bakhtiari back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, that was the reason for me maybe digging in a little bit more on top of a few comments that I saw. I figured, why not have some fun? Once again, I did cover this on the YouTube, so there are some visuals if you want to go check it out over there. It's Packernet Podcast. It used to be Pack Daddy. It's Packernet Podcast on YouTube. But I'm going to go ahead and play that audio for you right now. Questions about will David Bakhtiari potentially return to the Packers, now that their offensive line seems to be in flux, et cetera, et cetera. There was an article written here by ESPN. David Bakhtiari says he wants to play in the NFL a couple more years. From that, a couple of other, this is the source if you want to go look at it, but there's two main things here that I wanted to look at. Here's an article by Kem Yol Bulan from Dairyland Express. Packers free agent casts doubt on return to Green Bay. They've got a couple quotes in here. For your edification. According to ESPN's story, Bakhtiari is not interested in returning to Green Bay. If the Packers wanted me to protect Jordan, they wouldn't have fired me, said David Bakhtiari. A little bit further down, it says Bakhtiari wants to continue his career. He doesn't expect that to mean a reunion with Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love, the past two quarterbacks he protected. So, according to this article, which is according to David Bakhtiari, and it's not a guarantee, obviously if the Packers realize that there's nothing good going on here, they may come crawling back to Bakhtiari and may work something out. It's entirely possible. I wanted to highlight this here too. It says ex-Packer David Bakhtiari wants to play with the next Super Bowl MVP. So this kind of, obviously we could assume that could be Jordan Love, possibly. But it kind of helps us to narrow down some of the options for David Bakhtiari. Obviously, there's one that comes immediately to mind, but the quote here is, I want to play with the next Super Bowl MVP. Wherever the hell that's going to be, I better be with him. I just want to play with the next Super Bowl MVP. That's it. Couple things in here. See if I can find them real quick. I should have noted them or something. Here. This little segment here says, a lot of other people wanted me to just kind of grit through it, but no one experiences what you truly experience. Bakhtiari said of his decision to have a 5th surgery in November. A 5th surgery. Good Lord. He says, look, I've been gritting through it for 3 years. I'm in constant pain. I'm so happy now to be on the other side of it and get the actual surgery that I needed because my knee was not in a good place. My first thought on this situation is I don't know if David Bakhtiari has a job or a future in the NFL. Now, there are always teams that are going to be desperate, that are going to say, look, it's not great, but why not take a swing at him? But the problem with that is that David Bakhtiari is not coming back on some 5-year contract. He's not going to come back for some BS, backup nonsense money. If we read through this article, he talks extensively. Let's see. So this is more about I just need to recover. I need to do all that, which is on the negative side of things. He says, I don't like other people writing my story. I couldn't just put a period, close the book, and leave it. Whatever. I just kind of got to remind people. People have kind of forgotten the kind of player I was, the kind of player I am. He goes on to talk about I want to be a left tackle. He says I want to be there I want to be the cornerstone of an offensive line, not just in December, but hopefully in February and all that kind of stuff. So the vision he has for himself is he's going to get his knee right, and I'm going to be that cornerstone, top of market left tackle. That's what I'm going to be. So the question is there a gap between what teams value him at? Because everybody's got a price. I'm sure if David Bakhtiari said, look, I'll do it for the veteran minimum, the Packers would be like, well, okay, I guess you can come back. But that's not going to happen. And I think that's going to be the biggest hindrance for David Bakhtiari is the fact that his vision for himself is that of an elite top-tier left tackle. And I think his risk profile is just too much at this particular point in time. But I figure why not look at some potential here. I don't know exactly. I picked out what I guess I would consider playoff teams. I added the Jets in there. You can argue with that if you want. I don't really care. You can argue with a lot of stuff. It ultimately doesn't matter. The first couple ones, the Buffalo Bills, Dallas Cowboys, Detroit Lions, Houston Texans, New York Jets, all have some merit to it. For example, Buffalo, certainly a playoff team. Dallas, you've got a playoff team and Mike McCarthy, which would be interesting. Detroit, because that's where former Packers love to go. They love to go to either the Vikings, the Bears, or the Lions just to screw with us. Houston, because they're obviously a young ascending team. And the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. The problem is there's several. Some of these teams don't need a left tackle. The Jets do not. Houston does not. Detroit does not. Dallas does, and Buffalo does not. So Dallas would be the only one. The reason I highlighted these in the beginning is that these are all teams that use turf. To my knowledge, I could be wrong. To my knowledge, these teams all use artificial turf, which David Bakhtiari is very, very, very against. Now, if the Jets or if Dallas or whoever came calling with that big money contract, let's say Dallas said, hey, I want you back, big dog. We need you to fill in this left tackle spot here. Would he maybe get over it? I don't know. But I would more or less rule most of these teams out. That leaves us with these 5. These 5 are teams that I would consider not just playoff teams, but teams with a pretty legit shot. You could maybe say the Eagles are kind of iffy because of the way they ended. I still don't know what to make of the Eagles, but I'll put them on here anyways because it was a very fluky and weird situation. So if we go through these teams, Baltimore, I would say they don't need a left tackle. Miami does not need a left tackle. Philadelphia does not need a left tackle. San Francisco does not need a left tackle. That leaves only one option, which hilariously enough, David Bakhtiari says, I want to... And here's the other thing. I don't know how much Bakhtiari actually... I mean, of course he cares. Of course he'd like to be there. I think he's angling for this team because this is the only team. This is the only playoff team that desperately needs a left tackle. Bakhtiari knows that this would be somebody he would love to play. He wants to be here. He gets to, block for Pat Mahomes. He probably gets a Super Bowl if he plays in the next, if he can get a 3-year thing, if he gets his knee right, he feels like he knows he's going to get a Super Bowl, at least one. This is the one he wants. So when he goes on these media channels and he says, I want to block for the Super Bowl MVP, whoever that would happen to be, he's screaming at the Chiefs, just come get me. They need 2 tackles desperately. This is a very good team with maybe the best quarterback in all of football. They have some good interior. They need a lot of help. Now, maybe they did something in the draft. Wanya Morris is going into year 2. Maybe they like him. I don't know. He didn't play very much. He was a 3rd-round pick. I'm guessing that is not their first option. Jawan Taylor has been a disaster as a 2nd-round pick. I don't even think they picked him. Did they pick Jawan Taylor? Maybe. I don't know. Don't remember. This seems like a no-brainer if they can work out the price. So to me, it kind of comes down to one of 2 things. Will a team be willing to pay what David Bakhtiari is wanting to make? Because sometimes that's the problem. A lot of times we'll look at players and go, how could he not get a contract? How could teams be so stupid? And a lot of times it's just because players are too adamant that they're better than they are. Or maybe not better than they are, but they're worth more than they are. Because risk profile is part of the situation. And then if he does get a contract, is it going to be Kansas City? Because I don't really see a whole lot of better options. I really don't. Unless we start going down the line a little bit. Start looking at teams that are maybe a little bit lesser, right? Or just teams that are not necessarily playoff teams, but they're on grass. Does Arizona need help? I don't think Chicago would pull the trigger on that. I know they've got a guy at left tackle. I don't know their situation there. Would Bakhtiari do it? I'm assuming. Cleveland, Denver, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, maybe get back with Devontae. Again, I'm not saying they need left tackles. I don't know. Pittsburgh, Tampa, Tennessee, Washington. To my knowledge, these are all teams that are playing on natural grass that he might be willing to consider. It's just a question of who'd be willing to pay him and do they need or want a left tackle? And I think the other nod for a team like the Chiefs, if you're Washington, and that's not to say teams wouldn't do this. There are a lot of stupid teams that do a lot of stupid things. But if you're a young team that is a few years out from winning, and you're thinking, maybe we're more of a 2025, 2026 team once we kind of get our ducks in a row, you don't want to do this. So you're looking at teams that want to win today. That would be the Kansas City Chiefs. They're saying, I don't care if David Bakhtiari only plays for a year. We can use him for a year and then discard him and then figure it out from there. Maybe we draft a guy in 2025. So this is the one that makes the absolute most sense to me, is that if he plays, he ends up playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's my prediction. Actually, my prediction is he's not going to get a job, honestly, because even if you listen to the article, he's not even on the other side yet. He's talking about he's in constant pain every single day. He's saying I'm on the other side of it, but he's still talking about rehabbing. He's talking about getting to a certain point where he can do this, that, or the other, and assuring that I can do these things. This is not a guy saying I'm ready to rock and roll today. So the other issue is we've heard this before about he went through the surgery, he's ready, and then he wasn't ready. He never came back. And then he tried to play and his knee blew up and he needed more surgeries and more surgeries and more surgeries. And now we're hearing again, well, this time we got the surgery right. The 5th one was actually the right one. And this time it's going to be great. At some point, it's just not worth it. It's really just not worth it. Not for like actual starter money. Not for starting left tackle money. It's not. Anyways, why don't we go ahead and take our first break and we'll be right back. What's going on, U.S. Cellular customers? I've got good news, so don't hit skip, at least not yet. I'm talking about their special customer event, Us Days. What is Us Days? It means exclusive offers just for their customers, just to say thanks. Like $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. No, I didn't just misread that. They must really like you. Us Days at U.S. Cellular, exclusive offers just for you, just to say thank you. Right now, U.S. Cellular customers get $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. Terms apply.
Jewelry can say many things on your wedding day. As a wedding band, it can say, "This is a forever symbol of our forever love." As a gift to your wedding party, it can say, "Thanks for standing up there with us." Blue Nile can help you find the piece that says it all and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com.
Think you know the Brooks Ghost? Think again. Introducing the all-new, better-than-ever Ghost 16. Now with nitrogen-infused cushioning for lightweight, supreme softness that feels good every step, every street, every single day. So go ahead, take your daily joyride in the all-new nitrogen-infused Ghost 16. It'll turn your everyday miles into everyday endorphins. Let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
All right, so I also want to focus on somebody else that is not a Packer. I'm sorry, I understand. We did Bears yesterday, then we did David Bakhtiari, we did Rodgers, and now we're going to do the Minnesota Vikings. I probably haven't talked about the Packers in a week, but I'm partially kidding. Again, it's important stuff. I want to talk about the Vikings quarterback situation. Try to keep an eye on that. I think we all generally understand that. First of all, J.J. McCarthy was always supposedly going to be a project. I think there was always a possibility that he could come in, shock everybody, and they're like, well, hell, let's just get him started. It doesn't appear that that's really the case. According to reports, and we've talked about this a little bit, Sam Darnold is expected to be QB1. In fact, Albert Breer recently, I think ESPN or something, I'm not sure, but he was quoted as saying, I'd say less than 10%. And that's not an affront to McCarthy, who by all accounts had a fine spring in Minnesota, talking about his odds of playing. So I wouldn't necessarily read too much into it. I think if anything, as far as there being some levels of concern, and Vikings fans, obviously you guys know more than I do, so feel free to educate me on this matter, but the bigger concern would be the fact that he hasn't cracked the QB2 spot. Now, again, if this is a long-term picture, you maybe don't worry about it as much, but it's got to leave you a little bit troubled that he has remained QB3, and we'll see by the time that this is done. It's very possible he could rise to the ranks of QB2. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I think you kind of got to look at it in terms of one of two different things. On one hand, if you're the QB2, you look at it and say, hey, there's a chance that this guy could get some very limited snaps on the field, kind of help him crack, shake off some of the cobwebs, get him out there a little bit, but only in limited fashion. A couple snaps here and there because of injury or whatever. But you're not throwing him to the wolves. He's still just sitting back and learning. It's sort of like an internship, if you will. I think the fear is maybe you just don't want any of that. Maybe while he's in this early learning phase where they're just knocking out footwork and learning the offense, maybe he doesn't need to step foot on a football field. And also there's a fear that if Sam Darnold goes down, he is now your starting quarterback. Now you could change it, but that's going to be a little bit, kind of a crappy thing to do. If you're like, oh, we didn't actually want you to be QB2, we actually like the other guy better, so now we're going to make you QB3. We were just kidding about that. We just didn't, just hoping that wouldn't happen. No, I mean, you're going to kind of put that in stone. That's the situation. If Darnold goes down, who do we want out there? And apparently, Kevin O'Connell, the head coach, has put together a step-by-step development plan for McCarthy and essentially has outlined X amount of things that they want him to be able to get fixed before they put him on a football field, which is probably why he's 3 and will remain 3. It's not even necessarily that he sucks, more so that again, here's your checklist. Before we want to put you on there, we want to make sure that you can at least execute these things. Now, the question will be, over the course of time, is he developing in those areas? That's going to be the bigger question. And I think the biggest thing, at least from Packer fans, before we jump down the throat of Vikings fans about how much JJ sucks and all that, which by all means, if you never liked him to begin with, I know our JJ did not like their JJ to begin with, so I mean, if you want to lay into him, go ahead. But a lot of what they're saying reminds me of Jordan Love. I mean, first of all, I think he is immensely gifted. I hate to draw the Jordan Love comparisons, but honestly, I see a lot of them. First of all, I had said coming into this, there's 2 Pat Mahomes in this draft. One of them is J.J. McCarthy. The other is Caleb Williams. unfortunately. That was my assessment. That's not everybody else's, but just play style. Well, Jordan Love was sort of that Pat Mahomes guy too. He just needed development. Jordan Love comes into Green Bay. His footwork needs work, and he needs to learn the offense. He doesn't understand the basics, and it looked bad. That's where JJ is. He's coming in. It doesn't really look good. There are moments where it looks good, just like it did with Jordan. But overall, it just looks sloppy because he doesn't even understand the basic fundamentals of how to get the footwork down, of how the offense works, how to be, all this different stuff. I'm not trying to pump them up. I'm just saying that seems to be the phase that they're in, which to me would mean a slower, longer development, which maybe Vikings fans need to kind of clue into. Not that JJ and Jordan are the exact same guy, but I think Jordan needed every single one of those 3 years. Maybe not. Speculated on it, I think even yesterday, that maybe if we threw him in there year one, after a half a year, he would have figured it out. He just needed to get on the field. I don't know. But he was looking pretty rough. Pretty much his entire time here in Green Bay, all the way through the first half of his third year with Green Bay, or fourth year, right? 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. So all 3 years plus whatever was there in that fourth year. So that's more or less the way that I'm going to approach this. I'm going to sit back and wait and see what happens with Caleb. We'll wait and see what happens with J.J. McCarthy. We kind of know what we have in Goff. He's playing some pretty good football and maybe for some time. I see him as similar to a Kirk Cousins, I guess. I don't know if I would say he's quite as good, but maybe. But a guy that's pretty talented and can certainly hurt you, but is not, he's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Pat Mahomes, whatever. But we'll take it a step at a time. We'll see what's going on. I think it's going to be, honestly, and again, maybe he starts or whatever, but I don't think we're really going to be talking much about J.J. McCarthy until next year, when they're probably going to want to push him onto the field, and we'll see. And that's where the drama could really ramp up, because Sam Darnold signed a 1-year contract. So whereas the Packers had several years, and they could, obviously extend Rodgers and all this stuff if things aren't working out, they feel like they're in a pretty good spot. They probably didn't necessarily predict the amount of drama that was going to occur and just thought, we have a lot of flexibility. We can either sign Rodgers or not sign Rodgers, and that's it. Turns out that wasn't it. There could be certainly a lot more that could happen with a very unhappy quarterback. But with the Vikings, it's kind of a matter of, okay, you get 1 year to sit and then we want you out there next year, which several teams do that. In fact, most teams, I think, say they're going to do that, and by week 4 or 5, they start throwing the guy out there. We'll see if the Vikings end up doing the same kind of nonsense. But I mean, it's still possible they let him sit for a year. That wasn't enough time. They throw him out there and he looks terrible. And the problem is, you can say, well, they can figure out a new plan next year if they need to. They can, but how bad is that going to look? Granted, it's nothing more than optics, really, although it's going to be a heck of a shot to the confidence of J.J. McCarthy. People used to say that about Jordan Love all the time, like, he couldn't even start. Bro, Aaron Rodgers was the starter, you frickin' moron. Shut up. But if Sam Darnold is your starter and he's on a 1-year contract, and next year they have to get some other bum to come in and be the starting quarterback because they don't want you to be the quarterback, that's different optics than Jordan Love is sitting behind Aaron Rodgers and can't beat Aaron Rodgers for that job. Even if they're on the same level, the optics, very different. Because you don't expect somebody to beat Aaron Rodgers. You absolutely expect people to beat Darnold-level players. So the Vikings with Kwesi and everything have already talked extensively about how they're not going to rush him. They're not going to, push him into this situation. It's going to be a developmental thing. I think the one thing that is, as we kind of move off of this now, I think that pretty much encapsulates the J.J. McCarthy Minnesota Vikings situation. The one thing that really is starting to shock me is the Sam Darnold thing. I think for most of us, and I've complimented Vikings fans quite a bit for being one of the more rational fan bases. Lions fans, it's hard to tell. I don't think they're very rational. In fact, they may become one of my least favorite if they start mouthing off a ton, which it seems like they are. I mean, they just come in swinging, and it's like, bro, you talk a lot for somebody that sucked as long as you did. And Bears fans are just complete freaking delusion town. But I am starting to see a version of the Vikings fan base that is shocking me. I think everybody kind of understands the Vikings situation. We all get it. This year's going to suck. Maybe next year will be better. We'll see. I have no real reason to believe that. That assumes J.J. McCarthy is a good quarterback. It also assumes a lot of other stuff starts going right, and I don't think they've done a lot of good things recently. I mean, who are the studs that they've added recently? They're starting to look like the Bears, where they go out in free agency constantly and get guys that are just not very good and don't do anything. Like then they lose Danielle Hunter, you lose Kirk Cousins. Like you're just perpetually going backwards now. At what point do you start building? You needed to go backwards. I get it, although I don't get Danielle. But at what point do you show me that you can actually build something? But whatever. Yeah, maybe 2025. But we all understand it's not going to be good right away, right? So I went on the Reddits, and I know that this is not, believe me, this is not the source of all things. I understand silly things happen on Reddit. I don't know to necessarily what extent. I don't spend a lot of time on here. But I should, and I think I'm going to try to remember to start doing that. A lot of good material. But I came across this little gem here. MMW, I don't know what that means. JJ McCarthy is staring week 1, 2024, and the Vikings. It's supposed to say starting. It says staring. Week 1, 2024, and the Vikings are making the playoffs. He goes on to say, I promise you there's a point to this. Yes, this is total homer optimism, but F it, I don't care. The more I see JJ, the more I'm convinced he's going to be legit. Okay, fair enough. It's all right there in front of our faces. You can see it from the 100% genuine enthusiasm and excitement from getting the call from the Vikes and watching his full press conference. The more I learn about him, the better it gets. So I'm sorry, I have to make fun of this guy a little bit. Like, I know it's just like punching a puppy. It's really unnecessary and rude, and it's like, come on now. That's not very nice. He knows that he's going to start week 1, and the Vikings are going to the playoffs, and they're going to be great because of enthusiasm and excitement. Wow. Bro, if you called me to go play for the Packers, I'd be very enthusiastic and excited. Actually, I'd be terrified. But let's just pretend that my job was not something that would get me killed. Right? Let's say I got a job in the analytics department and they were going to pay me a crap ton of money. I would be very enthusiastic and excited. I would probably suck at that job. This is the dumbest thing ever. This is a kid that decided in 5th grade that he was going to dedicate his life to being a professional athlete. I would guess that's most of them. He then follows through on it and has exceeded in the highest levels of competition at every step of every. This is literally every NFL football player. All of them. They dedicated themselves to being good at a thing, and then were so good that they got to the highest levels, including the NFL. That's all of them. Every single football player, including, which is most of them, the bad ones. He's going to bust his effing A to take the starting job from a lame duck like Darnold easily. Then he's going to do what he already knows how to do and has done his whole effing life: chew bubblegum, kick you-know-what, and win football games. This is the dumbest. This has to be a friggin' 12-year-old. Anyways, I saw that. I got a little chuckle out of it. I was like, that's stupid. And then Trade Kirk says, we'll skip Trade Kirk. The next one down, it says, in a perfect world, Sam Darnold has a borderline MVP season, and we don't need an excuse to redshirt McCarthy. And I was like, yeah, but that's stupid, right? I mean, I know you said in a perfect world. And I looked down, and the comment is, this is a bigger pipe dream than JJ starting week 1. And the guy says, oh, okay. Now, understand, this comes on the backdrop of having heard little rumblings about some Vikings fans think that this could be a thing. And I'm like, nah, nobody thinks that. It's not possible. Now I'm seeing in a perfect world, Sam Darnold has a borderline MVP season. Somebody else in this hellscape of a social media platform said, JJ McCarthy has a lower ceiling. His comp is Alex Smith. Sam Darnold has the higher ceiling. His comp is Elway Favre. If KOC can unlock Darnold, he will be playing for a long time. Okay, first of all, JJ McCarthy's comp in terms of his ceiling is not Alex Smith. Not saying that there weren't people that said that, but to pretend, first of all, you're taking one guy that's been in the NFL and proven to be a bust, and you're going to his college evaluations and what people said a long time ago that they thought he could become, and going to the highest levels and saying Elway and Favre. Then you pick out this other guy and you go with maybe his worst comps, which would be Alex Smith. He was also compared to Kirk Cousins, which is why it was considered a great fit, who's a significantly better quarterback than Alex Smith, in my opinion. No offense to Alex Smith, who was decent. But also would mean he has a higher ceiling. Other comps would be guys like, Joe Burrow, Jay Cutler. Just saying, I know, maybe not anybody's favorite. It was Daniel Jeremiah that said Kirk Cousins. He also said Alex Smith, but I don't know, man. And here's the other thing. Can I just speak directly to Vikings fans? If you're excited about Darnold, that's cool, I guess. Like, really don't put a lot of stock into that, but, sit back and be like, maybe, crazy things happen sometimes. I don't know if the Vikings are the team necessarily to unlock it, but you got a wide receiver, and O'Connell's pretty quarterback friendly, so, maybe, but probably not. Don't go so far as to trash J.J. McCarthy because of Darnold, because you want to win some argument or you want to be right about Darnold or whatever. Don't do that. That's stupid nonsense. What's going to end up happening is you're going to end up in the same situation that Packer fans were in, where you had 3 years of some Packer fans being so dug in on being anti-Jordan Love that even today they don't want to enjoy what's happening with Jordan Love. Don't go down that road. He's your guy. Back your guy, okay? Back your guy. There's another thing on Reddit here. This is from kind of a long time ago, but Kevin O'Connell on Sam Darnold showing improvement and reaching a true growth stage as a quarterback. Some of the comments are, I expect him to have the best season of his career. Keep in mind, he was just in San Francisco, so everything positive you can say about Minnesota, pretty sure it applies to San Francisco. I mean, if he didn't get unlocked there, I would tamp down expectations a touch. I'm very excited. I think Sam will be an above-average quarterback for the Vikings this year. I think this dude is going to exceed expectations as our starting quarterback and will be an MVP conversation. I can feel the screenshots, he says. I don't know if anybody cares that much, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Another guy says it would be nice if Darnold became our Jared Goff. Yeah, the problem is Darnold and Jared Goff is Jared Goff. I don't know if the implications that Jared Goff is just this garbage piece of crap quarterback that was floating around and then went to Detroit, because that would not be accurate. He had some down years for sure, but he also had a lot of really good years for the Rams. Like a lot, like top offense in the NFL type good. And part of the problem here is that Darnold had a pretty good offseason. There's some talk about he only threw one interception or something. So I feel like it's stoking the flames, getting away from Reddit, which is kind of obviously maybe not the best place to be if you want serious opinion. Well, I mean, it is serious fan opinions. I don't know if it's serious people opinions. There's an article here. This is from, it's Vikings.com. We're kind of moving up the ladder. Obviously, there's some bias here, but it gets better because we get into Daniel Jeremiah. But this is written by Craig Peters, and it's The Athletic explores Sam Darnold's role in development. It starts talking about how, back with the Jets, McCown was talking to the media and whatnot, and he talked about how important, development is, and everyone's different with the pace at which they take in information. And he says it's wise as an organization to understand that. He said that back in 2018, kind of setting up the groundwork for talking about Sam Darnold now. Basically, it's a giant excuse for why he hasn't been good and could still be. And then NFL Media's Daniel Jeremiah on Wednesday said if someone injected truth serum into the top prospects and their agents, they'd all admit Minnesota offers the best landing spot for a young quarterback. That is a weird thing to say. I don't know if they necessarily mean like the best spot of the available spots, but there's no way that you're saying that Minnesota is the best spot. I understand there's a lot of love for Kevin O'Connell. Fair enough. I think he's on par with a lot of other good play callers. Justin Jefferson's good, but he's the only one they really... we get into that whole rookie thing again. He's not a rookie anymore, but still. Offensive line, I mean, I don't think so. Again, I think San Francisco would probably be a better spot overall, and he was just there. But you must mean of the available spots. It says Darnold has 56 NFL starts under his belt, and he'll only be 27 years old in June. He and the Vikings believe in continuing to develop even this many years into his career. If things go well with Darnold, the development on-ramp with a young player could take its full course. Quote, we just happen to have a really good situation. In my opinion, with the players we have in that huddle, the guys who are going to be coaching that player, and then ultimately what we hope is a long-term plan to really have a special player at the position, O'Connell said earlier this week. By the way, let me remind you, they offered him a 1-year contract and then drafted a quarterback. Let's also keep that in mind as we go through and listen to coaches and whatnot talk about how they genuinely believe that they can get something great out of Darnold. They offered him a 1-year bullcrap contract and then drafted his eventual replacement. Just thought I'd mention that. But we're starting to see this thing emerge, and it's starting to marinate, and it's starting to become a thing. And listen, I've said this before, if fans decide to set themselves up for a painful and just abrupt, deadly landing when reality comes and smashes them in the face, don't stop them. Just let them do it. You know? I mean, listen, the reasonable fans aren't even doing this. So it's not like I'm saying let's have the reasonable, it's not all fans deserve that. The fans who are going to hype up Sam Darnold absolutely deserve all the pain that's coming to them. I got 2 more articles here or things here. Cautious Optimism starring Sam Darnold, written by Mark Schofield. Talk about, all the same kind of stuff with development, and there's some cautious optimism about him and all that stuff. The one interesting thing about it, though, is that it was written August 28th, 2021, when he went to the Carolina Panthers. There's another article from the New York Post, Sam Darnold Optimism as Jets break down playing decisions. This was written 2019. So this is a very common theme. Everybody knows where Sam Darnold was drafted. Everybody knows what people said about Sam Darnold when he came out. This guy's a can't-miss prospect. He's got a great arm. He's all this stuff. And so when he goes somewhere, they look at it and go, hey, maybe. And to some degree, I get it. But at this point, I think it's time, and Vikings fans, listen to me. First of all, you've got a lot more issues than just quarterback. There are other issues that need to be resolved. I think you've got a good head coach. I think you potentially have a good defensive coordinator. I think you've got some foundational pieces. You finally got that offensive line figured out. You drafted your quarterback of the future. The wide receiver room is shaping up. You paid for a pretty solid tight end. Defense, we got some work to do, but we're working on it, right? Give it time, but don't talk to me about 2024 and Sam Darnold being a thing. It's not impossible, but we're talking about things that are silly, right? There's a difference between, so for example, if that did happen, would I regret what I'm saying right now? No, because again, going to that whole blackjack thing, if you have a 20 and you hit, you're an idiot. And if an ace flips over, I'm not going to say, never mind, I was wrong, because I wasn't. I was not wrong. Hitting on a 20 is stupid always. Always. Just because you accidentally happen to have it happen doesn't mean that you were right and I was wrong. You were still wrong, and I was right. You just did the wrong thing and it paid off, right? Like, I can't think of any non-inappropriate examples. Sometimes you make bad life decisions and it doesn't hurt you in the way that maybe it should. But let's take a look at Sam Darnold for a second, okay? He is just 27 years old, but he played for the Jets for 3 years. In that time, he had 2,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. In 2019, it was 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. In his final year with the Jets, and believe it or not, there were not that many less attempts, 2,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. His yards per attempt dropped to 6.1 yards per attempt. He had 9 big-time throws. That was compared to 20 the year before, but still 17 turnover-worthy plays, which is almost as many turnover-worthy plays. It was a horrible performance. He had a 58 PFF grade, 52.7 passing grade. He got shipped off to Carolina. New optimism, right? 2021. Hey, you never know. It could happen. 2,500 yards, 9 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 54 passing grade. One more year in Carolina. He plays, 162 dropbacks, which is, a quarter of a season maybe. 82 completions, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 66 passing grade. Then he goes to San Francisco. About as good of a situation as you can possibly get. 28 completions, 297 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, 66 passing grade. His overall grades have been relatively consistent. He obviously dipped in that last year, the Jets' first year of Carolina, but it was 64, 63, 58, 54, 63, 66. His year with San Francisco was his best year with a 66 PFF grade, and the only reason is because he had one good game against LA. 16 completions, 189 yards, and 1 touchdown. That's it. By the way, you can go back for 4 years. If you look at his total touchdowns and interceptions, he has one more interception than touchdowns over his last 4 years. 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. If you add it up, you get 27 touchdowns and 28 interceptions. The last time he had a game that graded out in the 80s was in 2021 when he was in his first year with Carolina, which was also one of his worst years. So starting in week 3, his grades were 80, 50, 40, 50, 40, 80, 40, 50, 40, 40. I've never seen so many 40s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the span of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5 out of 8 games he graded in the 40s. We're talking 177 yards, a touchdown, and 3 picks. Then he has a game in the 50s. Then he has 112 yards, 0 touchdowns, and a pick. That was another one. His game in the 80s was 129 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Wow, just crushed it. The next week, 172 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Then 190 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. 132 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. The guy had a span from week 7 through week 17. There was some missed. So 7, 8, 9, 16, 17, where he had 0 touchdowns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. He had 0 touchdowns and 4, 5, 6, 5 interceptions. It gets worse if you go back even a little bit. From week 5, so add 2 more games. So in 7 total games, he had 2 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. 2 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That was in 2021. By the way, that was the last time he played kind of a full season. It was 10-ish, 11-ish, 12-ish games he played. 9 touchdowns, 13 interceptions total, 54.7 grade, 53.9 passing grade. I mean, listen, again, be optimistic, be excited. You have plenty of reasons to be if you're a Vikings fan. It's not Sam Darnold, though. That's silliness. All right. Why don't we go ahead and take our final break? We'll come back, and why don't we just take some calls here because, let's just do it.
Have you ever experienced turbulence on a flight and wondered why?
And you can see all the terrain around you. You've got no issue with visibility or anything?
No, everything's PG.
Maybe you've sat on the tarmac for hours wondering why your plane isn't moving.
Well, we're outside here. They're saying the ramp is closed. They won't let us park because of Air Force One.
Listen in on the conversations between pilots and air traffic controllers on the Air Traffic Out of Control podcast.
512 Whiskey declaring an emergency. There's smoke in the cabin. I need to make a landing right now on 31 left.
We have the most interesting, wild, and funny ATC recordings you will ever hear. Check out Air Traffic Out of Control wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Hey, Ryan, it's Garrett from Southern Illinois.
What's up?
I wanted to speak to the discussion regarding number 1 wide receivers.
Sure.
The podcast where you used the article of Christian Watson's dad and how you broke down players through the definition of what a wide receiver 1 is and how you used your rating. I thought maybe you could expand on that a little bit to maybe give us a little bit of a template to work from for next season. And where I'm going with is this. Develop a template of how you would determine if the player, wide receiver, is a 1,
sure,
2, or a 3. And then just start with the NFC North. Go through all of those teams and rate their wide receiver groups. And like you said, the Vikings obviously have a 1 in Justin Jefferson. Detroit obviously has a a 1A, 1B in a Amon-Ra, St. Brown. And I would say the Bears have a 1B, 1A in DJ Moore. So I would just be kind of curious to see how we stack up. And, I really strongly believe we have a bunch of 2s, which I would rather have a bunch of 2s than have a 1 and then a bunch of 3s or 4s. I just feel like there's just no drop off. And I do agree with the argument that, any given Sunday, that defense has to account for all the wide receivers. They can't just double one wide receiver. So I go into the season, I just kind of curious if you could maybe it become a weekly podcast where you take our wide receiver group and rate it against the wide receiver group that we're going to play that week and see where the ratings are before and how you would rate them after. And just every week we would go into it saying, okay, we're up against a 1. Everybody thinks that we have a bunch of 2s. So let's just see how we play and just use those statistics that you shared with us every week on the podcast. I think that would be a really good evaluation every week to see, because it definitely is a group that I firmly believe in is much better than most. I'm out.
Yeah, and I forget a little bit of some of the context. You were calling in on Tuesday. I don't remember exactly when I went over that, but it's some of the detail I'm sure is I'm missing. But it would kind of depend. I think it would probably be most beneficial to just pick a definition. So for example, on one hand, you've got just sort of like your top receiver, which you could gauge however it is you feel like gauging. So in other words, there are 32 number ones in the NFL, and it's just every team's top guy. Don't super love that because I don't think that's the context of what anybody's really talking about when they say number 1. Then there is a guy that is just significantly better than everybody else. I don't like that because if you put 2 quote-unquote number 1s on a team, they both become number 2s, right? Because they nullify each other. Right? Like I said, Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson, if they both get roughly the same amount of yards and nobody has like these elite ones because instead of, and maybe you got 2 guys cracking 1,000 yards, but let's just say that the yards stay relatively consistent, but they just level out. Then you don't have a number 1. I don't like that. I think a number 1 essentially is what we're talking about. And I wouldn't even necessarily say ranking it because, if you say top 15, what if there's 20 or 30 Justin Jeffersons? Let's just say for the sake of it. I keep using Justin Jefferson because I tend to think he's one of the top guys. I know he's a Viking, so maybe I should say Tyreek Hill or something. I don't know. But it's a name that sticks in my head and it's easier to remember for some reason, so I'll just keep using it. If there's 30 Justin Jeffersons, do we just discount 15 of them because we have an arbitrary line? I think it just comes down to talent. And so for me, it really is just PFF grade. And a lot of people are going to hate that, but I don't really give a crap. The anti-PFF people, I'm sorry I can't help you. I'm sorry that I can't help to enlighten you with better information and whatnot. But, and if you don't like that, pick a different metric. But it's such an easy grading scale. Now, whether you want to say anybody 90 and above, which I think would be a fair metric. There's probably not going to be very many. There could be 5, maybe 5 to 10, depending on the year. I don't exactly know. It could be 85, whatever. But you draw a line somewhere, and you say if you cross that line of talent, which has nothing to do with technically your quarterback, although it probably does to some degree, has nothing to do with the other wide receivers, although technically to some degree it might. I say that because, they are grading you, and if you do a good job, you do a good job, but they're going to give you a higher grade if the ball comes to you and you catch it and you get yards after the catch and all that stuff. And you can't do that if, number 1, your quarterback sucks and airmails it, or number 2, you have other wide receivers who are sniping a bunch of passes or whatever. But still, it should average out. I mean, if you're winning your routes, if you're catching the passes that come to you, you're going to have, you're probably going to end up with those high grades. So that would probably be my... Actually, you know what? Why don't we look at it real quick? Let's just see what, at least for last year, what would kind of make sense. And, there is some level of being arbitrary, But to me, it just makes more sense than, I don't want 2021, than, really anything else that I can think of. Come on, hurry up. All right, so last year, if we look at overall grade, there were 10, exactly 10, that had 90 PFF grades. So that works out nicely. The group included Puka Nacua, DJ Moore, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, and Tyreek Hill. Now, the other issue is some of these guys are going to be coming in and out. So do you're a 1 this year and not a 1 the next year? Maybe you could look at it and say that, a 1 is somebody that is consistently in this range, which obviously wouldn't really necessarily work for what you're talking about. But like Tyreek Hill would more or less fit into that. His lowest since, let's say, 2018 was like an 84.5. So he's mid-80s to 90s every single year. His last 2 years, actually, Miami, he's been significantly better. It was his only years in the 90s, and he's been 92 and 93.4 the last 2 years. Whereas, who could we pick here? Well, Puka Nacua, although he's just been on a straight skyrocketing thing here. Or no, not him. It's his rookie year. He had a 90. So I don't know. And I think it'd be good to do that for not just wide receiver, for some of the other ones. You could look at tight end and see, like, what's it going to take for them to be a true, like, top-tier tight end or to be edge one or whatever, tracking Jordan Love, is he a truly premier quarterback? And I think I do that to some degree. Obviously we go through the PFF thing. I try to do league-wide once in a while. But, yeah, I get what you're saying, and it would be good to kind of track that and see how it's going. And throughout the NFL, especially the NFC North, because we know that guys like Justin Jefferson are good. We know that DJ Moore is good. We know Keenan Allen's probably going to be good. We know Amon-Ra is good. So, it's one of those things, too, where if you can keep pace with them, you feel pretty good. Because things go up and down. It's not like Amon-Ra is just elite every single day. He has good days and bad days, slow starts, fast starts. So if you can just try to keep pace with those guys, then you're feeling pretty good.
On another note, I am going to never let this topic drop until you do something about it.
Uh-oh.
You've got to put a compilation of all those music
I know.
AI songs you've done on podcast.
I know.
And that Blues Brothers one.
The problem is I'm overthinking it. First of all, I don't want to do a podcast. Plus, it's one of those things where there's a lot of work. It probably won't take me that much time, but it's kind of a lot of work to go back and find all the songs. And it's just I don't want to do it, but I could very easily do it, download it, put it all in a folder, and then just start working on stuff. I want to put it on YouTube. I just remembered I came up with a new song. I was going to use it as like an intro for YouTube, which I might do anyways because I find it funny, but I want to make a video, which is the other problem. I want to put it on YouTube, but you got to have something with it. I could just put a picture up, but that's stupid, so I'm like trying to make music videos, and it's like I don't have time for this crap. Which again, I have some resources. If anybody wants to help me out, make some music videos and whatnot, we can collaborate on making some songs. I have access to some video clips and whatnot if you have the ability to stitch these together. I enjoy doing it. If it comes down to me actually doing it, I usually am not. But I'll save that song for the end of this episode. So please continue.
It was epic. I appreciate you amusing me with my idea on that. I think that one turned out pretty good.
The Blues Brothers one was tough, too, because if you type in blues, you don't usually get that. And I tried Blues Brothers, and it didn't really understand. So I had to I think it was like Chicago Blues I went with. It still was like, is this right? I don't know. But that one, some of these are easy, and it just gets it, and it's like, holy crap, that's good. And sometimes you really got to finesse it, and even at the end, I don't really like it. Like 1265 fan, the funk one, I'm glad she liked it. I thought it was okay. But it was like, sometimes it hits you and it's just like, dude, this is so good. And sometimes it's like, I don't know. And that one, the Blues Brothers one and the 1265 fan funk one, it was okay. I couldn't get it really the way I wanted it. But that's all right. That's okay.
And the more you flex that muscle, the better it's going to get. So keep flexing it. Still waiting for Joe the janitor and some other ones to come out.
Yeah, we gotta
this is prime time Ryan to do your summer homework.
I know.
So
I know.
Get it done. Then you can go outside and play. But get your work done first.
Homework first. I get it.
Oh no.
Fair enough. Yeah, I gotta do that. I'm actually excited because I forgot I just made that song yesterday. There's actually two versions of it that I really like, and I can't figure out which one I like. One is kind of the way that I envisioned it. One is a little bit more like, I can never remember, what the heck is the guy's name that does it? He's a DJ. Oh, Cascade, I think it is. I used to listen to that guy a lot, like back in college or whatever. I don't know how I came across him, but I really liked him. It sounds like that. And it's like, oh, that's kind of good. But I wanted to do something just kind of stupid and silly. And I wanted to, I'll give you a little preview. I wanted to do a song that is just Bears suck over and over and over again. And so that's essentially what I did. I think there might be a couple lyrics mixed in. I regret it, but I don't know. I thought it was funny to let's just do a song and it's nothing but Bears suck. And I think it came out okay.
What's going on, old modified fighter? How you doing?
Where you been?
Just calling to add some calls to your regimen to answer.
Thank you.
I was just listening to the episode you talk about the movies, and I was like, I haven't recommended any movies for you. I know I did some in the group chat, but it crossed my mind. It's a movie with Nicolas Cage in it, and I forgot the other actor's name, but he was in a movie called Silent Night. So that's one movie that I recommend. It's called Silent Night. It's about a guy who, I guess, if I tell the beginning of the movie, but basically his son gets killed like on Christmas, I think, or something.
Perfect.
And he loses like his hearing, and he goes on like a revenge to try to get people who killed his son. So that was a very interesting movie. The way John Woo, I think he filmed it, the way he made it, it's kind of like you're deaf a little bit.
Yeah.
So you can't hear everything. You hear like gunshots and stuff. It's kind of like a unique take on an action film. So I will definitely recommend that. That's one.
Cuddy's in this movie.
The other movie that the same actor is in with Nicolas Cage is called Sympathy for the Devil. And it's not a horror movie, it might sound like it. But basically, it's about a guy, his wife is about to give birth to his child or whatever. And he pulls in the parking spot at the hospital, like the parking garage, and then Nicolas Cage gets in the back of the car and won't let him leave. And I'm not gonna tell you more of the movie, but it goes crazy, and you be like, what the hell? And it's very interesting. So that's got two interesting films there for you to watch. Everybody in practice land during this dead period. And let me try to think of a Packers question. I got you. What is your concern as far as the team? What is it that you have a little uneasiness about? I don't know about this. I'll give you my two. Yours can be the same or different. One is the guard. I don't know. I don't like our guard situation on the right side. And so I'm really not feeling that. And then that's what I'm not liking. And what I'm scared of is that our defensive coach is either not good, is not going to be good, which I think he is, or that the players don't really get the defense like they should, and the defense is just holding us back like the first half of the season. So anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on movies and defense and practice. Go Pack, go.
Well, it's good to hear from you. I'm glad you brought up movies. I talked to Matt Ramage about starting a little thing, and I don't know, dude just ghosted me or something. We were gonna do a movie thing or TV thing. I don't know. I think Matt's just like me. It's like we should do it, and then you just forget, and then you're kind of glad that you forgot because you don't feel like doing all that work. So I laughed earlier because those are my exact thoughts. It's offensive line, specifically the guard situation. And then after that, it was defense. And I couldn't decide in my mind if it's, do I not trust the defensive coordinator or maybe just these defensive pieces don't come together? And you just articulated exactly what I was thinking. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we have a lot of hope for the defense, but maybe the defensive coordinator thing isn't as good as we hope. And even if it is, we don't know what we're going to get out of these safeties. We don't know what we're going to get out of these linebackers. We don't know how the edges are going to play. with Preston's hand in the dirt, with Rashawn's hand in the dirt. And on top of that, is Rashawn going to kind of have a bounce back? We don't know. We assume, but we don't know. It's kind of like Elton Jenkins. I keep assuming he's just going to be back to what he was, and he just doesn't seem to want to get there. I don't know. I guess that would be kind of my concern. I do appreciate very much the movie recommendations. What are some of the things I've watched? So I did finish that movie with Jennifer Lopez. I thought it was pretty good, actually. It wasn't a shockingly good thing. I wouldn't like bang the table for you have to watch it or anything, but it was decent. I really wish there was a history thing on here. Oh, I know one that I watched, which you're all going to roll your eyes at, but it's one of those things that's like, I haven't wanted to watch it, and I finally am like, fine, I'll watch the stupid frickin' movie. It's Moneyball. I just watched Moneyball for the first time. It is a pretty good movie. I thought the ending sucked, but there's nothing you can really do about, a true story. If the guy should have just accepted the frickin' job, and the movie would have been better, but wanted to stay with his daughter. Speaking of a movie where you're like, what the heck is going on? There's a movie called Hitman. It's number 2 in the top 10 movies on Netflix. And I thought that was kind of decent. It's really weird. Kind of just the whole way through is weird, but I could dig it. Can't really think of anything else I have watched recently, but I will have to keep an eye out. And definitely, so what do we got here? We got Sympathy for the Devil. Where is that? It says it's on Hulu, but sometimes that's BS. No, it's on here. Sweet. All right. So that Sympathy for the Devil is on Hulu, so I will keep that. The other one's going to give me some problems. It looks like Stars, which I don't have, or I have to subscribe. Can I get it on Amazon, or do I have to rent it on Amazon? Got to rent it. It's $6. We'll see. Follow-up question, is it $6 good? I await your answer. All right, I'm going to leave you guys with that. Appreciate all the calls, Garrett. Appreciate the call, Omar. Good hearing from you again. And we'll talk to y'all later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
America's favorite place to watch football is Stadium Swim. Located at the Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Catch all the biggest games at a viewing experience built for sports fans. Chill in one of our 6 pools on 3 different levels for a perfect view of our massive screen. Plenty of seating options from cozy day beds to private, temperature-controlled cabanas. Stadium Swim. Book your spot today at circalasvegas.com.